The rain came down in sharp, cold sheets that morning, the kind that made the entire city look washed out and exhausted. On the corner of a busy street, a woman stood desperately waving her phone, balancing an old tote bag on one shoulder and her son's lunchbox in the other. Her name was Miriam, a struggling single mom who seemed to always be running, always chasing time, always trying to keep her world from collapsing. And on that day, soaked to the bone and trembling with worry about being late to the job she couldn't afford to lose, she opened the door of a sleek black car and slid into the back seat, breathless and relieved. Only after she exhaled did she notice the man in the driver's seat staring back at her with surprised, puzzled eyes, and in that instant her entire day, her entire life, pivoted in a direction she never expected. She had mistaken a stranger for her Uber driver, a stranger whose identity would shake her world before noon. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us that good people still exist, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs it today, and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps keep stories like this alive. Miriam was used to embarrassment. Life had hardened her to it. But this time, she wasn't just embarrassed. She was mortified. She had rushed. She hadn't looked closely. She had entered a car that clearly didn't belong to any rideshare company, but in her panic, she hadn't noticed the polished interior, the quiet hum of the engine, or the calm dignity of the man behind the wheel. The man wore a simple gray sweater, nothing flashy, but there was an air of composure around him, as if life hadn't tossed him about the way it tossed her. She apologized quickly, her words trembling out, and reached for the door, ready to flee, ready to hide from the shame. But instead of being annoyed or insulted, the man gently told her that he would give her a ride anyway. That alone surprised her. People didn't offer her kindness without wanting something in return. She tried to refuse, feeling guilty, but the rain outside was merciless, and she knew she had no choice. He understood without her saying a word. As the car rolled through puddled streets, Miriam struggled to keep her tears from showing. The man didn't pry, didn't ask questions, didn't make her feel small for her mistake. He simply drove. And in that quiet, she felt a strange, fragile peace, the kind she hadn't felt in years. By the time they arrived at the towering office building where she worked as an administrative assistant, she rushed out, murmured a thank you, and disappeared inside before she could embarrass herself further. She didn't see the soft, understanding smile he gave her as she ran. Her office was a place of sharp whispers and quiet judgments. People pretended to be polished and perfect, but Miriam walked through those halls with cracked shoes and a tired heart. Her coworkers hardly spoke to her. To them, she was the single mom who always came in late, always looked frazzled, always said sorry, and today, once again, she arrived 1 minute past her check-in time. She braced for impact. Her supervisor, a woman known for rehearsed politeness and cold eyes, approached her with that familiar disapproval. Miriam apologized again, promising it wouldn't happen tomorrow, though she never knew if that was true. Being a single parent meant nothing was predictable, especially mornings. She tried to steady herself for the day ahead, trying to forget the humiliating mistake she'd made earlier. She didn't expect to see the man again. She didn't expect anything good to come from the morning. She simply pushed through the hours, surviving like she always did. But by noon, the building was buzzing with an energy she didn't understand. People were straightening their clothes, touching up their makeup, practicing polite smiles. Even her supervisor seemed nervous, glancing at her watch and adjusting her blazer. Miriam asked no questions. People rarely included her in anything. It wasn't until the sound of a small entourage approaching echoed down the hall that she realized someone important had arrived. Someone whose presence demanded respect, silence, and impeccable manners. And then she saw him, the man from the car. He walked with quiet confidence, not arrogant or showy, but with the easy assurance of someone who belonged anywhere he stood. This time he wasn't in a simple sweater. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, the kind Miriam only saw in magazine ads. His hair was neatly styled, and the people around him, the department heads, the board members, and even the CEO, were treating him with an almost reverent deference. It didn't make sense. Her mind stuttered, refusing to accept what she was seeing. The man who had driven her to work was someone important, someone powerful, someone everyone knew except her. It turned out his name was Arman Khalid. He wasn't a driver, he wasn't a visitor, he wasn't a consultant. He was the new co-owner of the entire company, the man whose investments had saved the business from collapsing earlier that year. People whispered this information rapidly, like birds scattering crumbs, and each whisper made Miriam's face burn hotter with humiliation. She hadn't just mistaken a stranger for an Uber driver. She had mistaken one of the richest, most influential men in the city. His eyes met hers across the office lobby, and she felt her chest tighten. She expected anger, mocking, disdain, anything that matched the cruelty she was used to, but instead, she saw something warm in his expression. Recognition, empathy, even a little kindness. But the moment that followed shook her even more. Her supervisor rushed forward, apologizing profusely for Miriam's earlier lateness as if trying to distance herself from the stain of being associated with someone like Miriam. She tried to explain that Miriam had personal issues, that they were working on her punctuality, and that the company had standards to uphold. The more she spoke, the smaller Miriam felt. Her cheeks reddened with shame. She wished the ground would open and swallow her whole. She didn't want pity. She didn't want the attention. She wanted to disappear. But then something no one expected happened. Armand turned to the staff and, in a firm but measured voice, defended her. He told them that he had driven her to work that morning by choice, that she had been respectful, grateful, and kind. And then he said something that made every head in the office turn. He said that people like her, people who work hard, who struggle silently, who keep going even when life is unfair, deserved respect, not judgment. The room fell silent as his words settled over the staff. No one dared speak. But what happened next was even more stunning. One by one, as if moved by an invisible thread of conscience, several employees stepped forward and supported him. They spoke up about how hard-working Miriam was, how she stayed late when needed, how she helped others quietly without ever taking credit. It was as if Armand's courage to defend her awakened something in them. The office filled with unexpected honesty and unexpected solidarity. Miriam, overwhelmed, stood frozen. Tears pricked her eyes, not from shame this time, but from shock. Shock that someone had finally seen her, someone powerful, someone kind, someone who didn't dismiss her existence or her hardships. She realized in that moment that she had spent years shrinking herself, apologizing for breathing, believing that she didn't deserve better treatment because she was struggling. But here was a man who refused to let others treat her as lesser. And because he stood up for her, the entire office seemed to rethink the way they saw her too. That day changed everything. Not because Armand was wealthy, but because he chose compassion in a place where judgment had become the norm. He didn't humiliate her. He didn't expose her embarrassing mistake. Instead, he honored her dignity by treating her as an equal human being. Over the next few weeks, small changes began to unfold. Her co-workers greeted her more kindly. Her supervisor stopped her sharp criticisms. People offered help instead of eye rolls when she needed to leave early to pick up her son from school. The office atmosphere softened toward her, and though Miriam remained humble and quiet, her heart slowly began to heal. Armand visited the office frequently, but he was never imposing. Sometimes he simply passed by her desk and gave her a gentle nod, an acknowledgement of the strange morning that had brought their paths together. Other times he asked if she was managing well, never prying into her personal life, never making her feel uncomfortable. She learned over time that he valued character more than appearances, effort more than privilege, sincerity more than performance, and in an odd, beautiful way, she felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in a long while. But what moved her most was how he treated her son. One day when she brought her little boy to the office after school, unsure what else to do, Armand saw him sitting quietly by her desk. Instead of ignoring him or frowning at the inconvenience, he crouched down, spoke to him gently, and offered him a small toy car from his office shelf. It wasn't expensive, but the gesture made her son's face light up for the first time in days. It made something in Miriam's chest melt. She worried people would gossip, twist things, assume things. But Armand made sure that the office understood one message clearly: respect was not optional. As the weeks turned into months, the story of the single mom and the mistaken driver became a quiet legend in the building. A reminder that dignity matters, that kindness can rewrite moments of humiliation into moments of transformation, and that sometimes the people who seem to have the least deserve the most. Compassion. Mariam continued working hard, now with newfound confidence. She no longer walked with her shoulders bent. She no longer apologized for every breath she took. And every time she passed through the office lobby, she remembered the morning she had rushed, soaked and desperate, into the wrong car, and how that mistake became the beginning of something she didn't know she needed. And Armin, he never forgot that morning either. He saw in her what the world had overlooked: resilience, humility, and a heart that refused to break despite everything. By the end of the year, she had been promoted, her salary increased, and for the first time in years, she could breathe a little easier. She could give her son small joys she once couldn't afford. She could plan for the future instead of surviving day to day. Life didn't become perfect, but it became possible again. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like the video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe. Your support truly keeps these stories alive. Before we end, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Mariam's place?